Xpeng Motors has spent most of its existence being known as one of China's more technology-forward electric vehicle companies. The brand that invested heavily in driver assistance, built its own AI systems, and generally positioned itself as the choice for buyers who cared about software as much as hardware. That identity served it reasonably well for a while, but the Chinese new energy vehicle market in 2025 and into 2026 has become brutal in a way that even optimistic observers didn't fully anticipate, and Xpeng has been feeling the pressure. February 2026 delivery figures told a stark story. 15,256 vehicles delivered, down nearly 50% from the 30,453 units the company moved in February 2025. Meanwhile, Li Auto, a brand that committed early and hard to extended-range electric technology, reported 26,421 deliveries in the same month, essentially flat year-on-year, demonstrating the kind of resilience that Xpeng's numbers conspicuously lacked. The competitive gap between brands that offered extended-range options and those that didn't has become impossible to ignore, and Xpeng has responded by launching the G6 EREV, the first extended-range variant in the G6 Coupe SUV lineup. Starting at 186,800 yuan, or roughly $27,080 US, it arrives as a direct attempt to compete in the segment that has proven most durable, while the wider EV market has been subject to the kind of demand swings that pure battery electric vehicles are particularly vulnerable to. The logic behind extended-range electric vehicles has become clearer the longer the Chinese market has been able to observe buyer behavior across different seasons and driving patterns. Pure battery electric vehicles are genuinely excellent for most everyday use, but they face a consistent set of objections that a meaningful portion of the buying public hasn't been able to get past: range anxiety on longer trips, reduced range in cold weather, uncertainty about charging availability, and the time commitment that fast charging still requires compared to filling a tank. The extended range format addresses all of those concerns without abandoning the electric driving experience that buyers increasingly prefer. The combustion engine in an EREV isn't connected to the wheels the way a traditional hybrid is. It runs purely as a generator, producing electricity to feed the battery and motors when needed, and the car feels and drives like an electric vehicle throughout. The result is something that appeals both to committed EV buyers and to those who aren't quite ready to give up the security blanket of a fuel tank, which is a wider pool of customers than either camp alone would represent. The G6 EREV is going after the Li Auto L6 and the Deepal S07 specifically, two vehicles that have done a lot of the work in establishing extended-range SUVs as a mainstream rather than niche product category in China. Both have sold in strong numbers by offering long combined driving ranges and the kind of charging flexibility that removes most of the practical objections to electric ownership. Xpeng's approach to differentiating the G6 EREV from those competitors rests on three things: a larger-than-typical battery pack, a more sophisticated charging architecture, and the driver assistance and AI technology that the brand has been building for years. Whether that combination is compelling enough to pull buyers away from established alternatives is the question the market will answer over the next several months. The powertrain at the heart of the G6 EREV is built around a 1.5-liter turbocharged petrol engine supplied by Dong'an Power, designated the DAM15NTE, which produces 110 kilowatts in its generator role. Like all properly executed EREV systems, this engine has no mechanical path to the driven wheels. It exists solely to produce electricity, either feeding it directly to the 218 kilowatt rear-mounted electric motor, or replenishing the battery depending on what the vehicle's energy management system determines makes most sense in the moment. The motor itself produces 218 kilowatts, which is a healthy output for a mid-sized SUV, and ensures the driving experience has genuine energy rather than merely adequate performance. Energy storage comes from a 55.8 kilowatt-hour lithium iron phosphate battery pack, a notably generous capacity for an extended-range vehicle, where the battery is typically sized more conservatively, since the generator is always available as a backup. Pairing that battery with a 60-liter fuel tank creates a system with considerable total energy reserves. The numbers that result are striking. Under the Chinese CLTC testing standard, the G6 EREV delivers 430 kilometers of pure electric range, meaning most buyers in urban environments will barely touch the combustion engine during typical weekly use. When you factor in the full fuel tank and the generator's ability to extend that range further, the total combined driving distance reaches 1,704 kilometers. That figure needs the usual caveats around real-world versus test cycle conditions, but even at a meaningful discount from the official number, it represents the kind of range that makes a weekend road trip or a long intercity journey a non-event from a planning perspective.
Efficiency is rated at 13.9 kilowatt-hours per 100 kilometers under CLTC conditions, which reflects the careful calibration of the system's energy management logic. Getting that number down matters not just for running cost, but for maintaining strong electric performance even when the generator is running alongside the battery. And 13.9 kilowatt-hours per 100 kilometers is a competitive figure for a vehicle of this size and capability. The electrical architecture deserves particular attention because it's one of the clearest differentiators between the G6 EREV and several of its competitors. Xpeng has built this vehicle on an 800-volt high-voltage platform, which is the architecture associated with the fastest charging speeds currently available in production vehicles. Most extended-range vehicles use 400-volt systems because the charging speed requirement is less pressing when you can refuel with petrol on long journeys. The battery doesn't need to charge as quickly if the generator can keep it topped up. Xpeng has chosen to invest in 800-volt architecture anyway, and the practical benefit is 5C ultra-fast charging compatibility. Under ideal conditions, with access to appropriate high-power infrastructure, the G6 EREV can add approximately 314 kilometers of range in 12 minutes. That's a charging speed that starts to genuinely compete with the convenience of a fuel stop, and combined with the vehicle's already substantial electric range, it means that buyers who do have access to fast chargers will rarely need to use the petrol engine at all. The exterior of the G6 EREV carries over the coupe SUV styling of the existing G6 lineup without modification, which is sensible. The G6's fastback silhouette is one of its strongest assets, and there was no reason to compromise it for the EREV variant. The body measures 4,771 millimeters long, 1,920 millimeters wide, and 1,650 millimeters tall, proportions that sit firmly in mid-size SUV territory while maintaining the low, swept roofline that distinguishes the vehicle from more upright competitors. The range extender hardware is packaged under the body without affecting the exterior form, which means buyers choosing the EREV over the pure electric G6 aren't giving up any of the design appeal in the process. Inside, the technology story continues with the second-generation VLA artificial intelligence system that Xpeng has developed in-house. VLA stands for Vision, Language, Action, and the platform delivers up to 2,250 TOPS of effective computing power, a figure that reflects the scale of processing capacity required to run the kind of perception, decision-making, and driver assistance functions that Xpeng has built its reputation around. The system underpins the vehicle's active safety features, which include automatic emergency braking and emergency steering assistance, both capable of operating at speeds up to 130 kilometers per hour. Those are meaningful capability thresholds. Many systems that look impressive on paper start to withdraw functionality at high speeds, and having AEB and steering assistance remain active at 130 kilometers per hour represents genuine real-world utility for highway driving. There's also a tire blowout stability control function that maintains directional control at speeds up to 180 kilometers per hour by using the drive system to generate corrective forces when a sudden tire failure occurs. It's the kind of safety feature that you hope you never need, but that addresses a genuinely serious risk in a way that passive safety systems alone can't. The chassis engineering reflects the same performance-oriented approach that runs through the rest of the specification. A front double wishbone suspension layout combined with a rear 5-link independent setup is the configuration you'd expect to find in a vehicle that takes handling seriously, and the adaptive DCC dampers that adjust suspension stiffness in real time based on driving conditions allow the system to balance ride comfort and dynamic control rather than forcing a permanent compromise between the two. The Tai-G hydraulic bushing system adds another layer of refinement by absorbing road vibrations before they reach the cabin structure, which helps the vehicle feel composed and quiet over the kinds of imperfect road surfaces that reveal the difference between thorough and superficial chassis development. The pricing at 186,800 yuan keeps the G6 EREV below the 200,000 yuan threshold that functions as a meaningful psychological boundary in the Chinese market. And the early buyer incentives of up to 33,200 yuan available for orders confirmed before the end of March 2026 make the effective entry cost more attractive still. Positioned against the L6 and S07, the G6 EREV is making a case based on larger battery capacity, faster charging architecture, and more sophisticated AI and driver assistance technology, a combination that aligns well with the kind of buyer who's drawn to Xpeng's brand identity and would have considered the pure electric G6 if not for concerns about long-distance practicality. For Xpeng as a company, the G6 EREV represents something more than just a new model launch. It's an acknowledgement that the market has moved in a direction the brand needed to follow, and an attempt to bring its genuine technological strengths into a format that has proven more commercially resilient than pure battery electric vehicles in the current environment. Whether it's enough to reverse the delivery trend that the February numbers illustrated is an open question, but the product itself makes a coherent and well-reasoned argument for why it deserves a place in a competitive consideration set that was previously dominated by Li Auto and its imitators.